The city doesn't sleep. Temo had stopped trying to predict its rhythms. Mexico City was something that would take time to get used to. He had arrived with little more than a backpack and a sense of stubborn optimism, and the city had tested both, chewing through his nerves before letting him settle into its bones. But over time, it had grown familiar. A month had passed now, and every day he felt more and more accustomed to life at a new pace, in a place that hadn't always felt like home, but was beginning to grow on him. The morning streets smelled like diesel and tamales. Sidewalks buzzed with life. School kids in uniforms ready to start their day. Vendors hawking pirated DVDs and knockoff sunglasses. Old women carrying baskets of bread wrapped delicately. And in the Zócalo, the distant smell of copal hung amidst the sound of blaring conch shells. The city was massive, relentless, and yet Temo found a strange comfort in its chaos. He'd gotten quite comfortable with work at the Coyote's Den, a half-hidden bar near the Zócalo with walls adorned with old peeling murals and posters of musicians from every decade, it seemed. The bar had its charm, including a front door that always seemed heavier than it should have been and a persistent smell of coffee and booze. The place had history, both the real kind and the urban legends that passed for it. There was a jukebox that only played vinyl, and a ghost light that flickered in the corner even when nobody touched it. It helped that the job came with a room upstairs, cash under the table, and no one asking questions. That last part mattered a lot to him. The boss was a strange figure. No one knew his real name, and absolutely no one asked. He moved around the crowds, half smiling, always watching. Some said he acquired the den after the last owner passed under mysterious circumstances. Others said he somehow owned it for hundreds of years. Others claimed he'd inherited it from a priest, or a devil, or both. Everyone seemed to have a story they liked to tell about him, no matter how absurd. The staff called him Hector, though he once told the Yetsi, with a grin full of teeth, "The name's Huehuecoyotl, but you can call me whatever you like." The morning had started like any other. Muted sunlight filtered through the dusty blinds, casting stripes of gold across the chipped kitchen tiles. Temo stood by the window, a coffee cup cradled in both hands as steam rose in slow spirals. The city outside was already alive with cars honking, street vendors shouting, dogs barking at anything including their own shadows. But inside, there was a stillness. He sipped his coffee, eyes skimming his phone, not really reading, just floating past information he couldn't quite process yet, letting his mind drift as the caffeine hit. And then he saw it. A photo. No caption, no sender name. His thumb hovered, frozen, his breath hitched, his stomach dropped. The image wasn't blurry or distorted. It was sharp, too sharp. A creature stared back at him with wide, empty-like eyes that resembled black holes. A snarl that split its face from ear to ear, jagged teeth glinting in the dark. It looked like it had crawled out of a nightmare, or a cautionary tale the abuelas would tell their children. But that wasn't the worst part. Behind the creature, barely visible in the murk, was a street, his old street, the one he grew up on. The cracked pavement, the rusted gate, the crooked lamppost that had flickered through every storm of his childhood. It was all there, as if the thing had been standing right outside his old house. "You good, kid?" Temo looked up. Hector leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed, a dish towel slung over one shoulder. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, watching, weighing. He scanned Temo's reaction for any clue as to what the young man was hiding. For a second, Temo felt exposed, like the older man could see through his skin, into the spiraling thoughts he tried to control. Temo forced a shrug.
"Just a weird text,"
he muttered, stuffing the phone into his hoodie pocket. It wasn't a lie. but it wasn't the truth either. Hector held his gaze for a moment longer before nodding and disappearing back into the other room. Temo sat there, bones buzzing, unable to shake the image from his mind. It clung to him like smoke in his lungs, like something ancient had followed him, crossed the line it shouldn't have been able to cross. He tried to go through the motions of the day, tried to be normal, but the photo hovered behind his eyes, replaying in a cruel loop. No matter how hard he tried, by late afternoon he gave in. He pulled out his phone and typed a message, fingers trembling slightly.
Hey, text me. When you're free, we need to talk.
The reply came faster than expected.
I'll be done in 2 hours. Meet me at Chapultepec. I'll buy you some food, and we'll talk then.
He arrived early, perhaps even a bit too early. Blame it on the nerves, or the creeping paranoia. He walked slowly, letting his steps guide him toward the lake, where boats floated lazily and lovers whispered beneath trees. He messaged Yetsi his location, then sat down on a bench, half in shadow, half in sun. He scrolled to pass the time, numbing himself with noise. But then it happened again. The image. It surfaced in a post from a random local account. Not the same photo, but the same creature. Those same empty, glassy eyes, but a different background, as if it had followed him into the algorithm. Temo's blood went cold. The comments were a mix of horror and mockery. Some called it a prank, others said it was AI generated. But a few seemed to know. People talking about folk tales, ancient creatures, bad omens. All their comments getting buried by the nonsense of others. None of it mattered anyways. He stared, unmoving, his thoughts raced. How many people had grown up hearing the same stories he had? Tales whispered by abuelas after dark, about beasts that fed on souls and vanished without a trace. Creatures that were equal part myth and memory. Things that waited in the water. Things you only talked about if you really believed. Temo's hand shook. His chest ached. Then a hand gripped his shoulder. He flinched, already halfway to a scream.
Hey, you look like you've just seen a ghost.
Yetsi. He turned to find her grinning, a cigarette between her lips, her laugh already bubbling out before he could catch his breath. She dropped onto the bench beside him, her body loose, at ease, like this world could never touch her.
You've got to relax, all right? One day, a leaf's gonna fall on your head, and you'll go into cardiac arrest.
Temo tried to smile, failed. He unlocked his phone and shoved the screen toward her.
You haven't seen this, then?
Yetsi raised an eyebrow, took a drag from her cigarette and squinted at the image. Then she laughed.
Dude, are you serious? Holy shit, you're not messing with me?
Her laughter spilled over, deep and real, the kind that made Temo's heart slow for just a second. He hated that it worked, that she could still pull him back from the edge with just a look, a sound, a joke.
I brought you a beer. Relax, all right? You're gonna give me a heart attack with that face.
Temo opened the can, the hiss oddly comforting. He took a sip.
I'm not saying it's definitely real, but what if it is? What if it's something people aren't ready to believe?
Yetsi looked at him, and her smile softened.
All right, I don't want you thinking I'm not listening, okay?
She leaned back, exhaled a cloud of smoke.
But if something like that were real, really real, we'd be fucked. And trust me, we'd all know about it.
Temo wasn't sure about that. The air had cooled. A hush fell over the park as the sun slipped behind the trees, leaving everything bathed in a soft amber and shade. The world slowed around them as vendors packed up their carts, children were coaxed home, and dragonflies skated over the lake. They sat quietly for a while, watching a boy try to skip stones across the water. The sun dipped lower, and the city's usual roar dulled to a hush. Birds wheeled across the sky like ink strokes. Soon, it was just them. Temo watched the light change in the water, his beer untouched. His body was still, but this scene, and being near Yetsi, reminded him of something. His mind wandered past the fright from earlier and into a night that never quite left him. They were sitting on a rooftop, both of them quiet, both pretending not to cry. Yetsi had just told him she was done here. Temo's voice cracked as he tried to hold himself together.
So, you're leaving?
His voice was tight, words caught like fish bones. His hands trembled, fists pressed into his knees. Yetsi didn't answer right away. She just looked out over the rusted roofs, her jaw clenched like she was bracing against the wind.
This is our home, isn't it? I mean, there's always hope it'll get better. That things will change, that people will see us. You'd leave and just give up on that?
His face crumpled. He hated crying in front of her, but it came anyway. Tears streaked his cheeks. Yetsi turned toward him, her voice low and steady.
I'm not going to wait around for a remote possibility, Temo. Hope's not enough when it means living in fear every day. It might get better, yeah, but it could get worse too. You know that. Deep down, you've always known.
She placed a hand gently on his shoulder, rubbed small, slow circles across his back as he cried. Temo clenched his jaw.
But aren't you scared of leaving?
She didn't flinch, didn't lie.
I'm terrified. But I'm more scared of who I'll be if I stay. More scared of losing who I am to fear.
Temo blinked hard, swallowing the memory as the present slid back into focus. The same weight settled on his chest, but it didn't crush him this time. It just was. He turned to Yetsi beside him. She was lighting another cigarette, her eyes half-lidded, relaxed. She had no idea he had just walked through the exact moment his life had changed.
You were right, you know.
She raised a brow.
Back then. On the roof. I fought you so hard on leaving. I kept clinging to this idea of what home was supposed to be. But it wasn't home. Not really.
Yetsi exhaled smoke through her nose.
No, it was a story someone else wrote for us.
Temo nodded.
I thought if I left, I'd lose myself. But it turns out, staying would have meant becoming someone I wasn't, or worse, not becoming anyone at all.
He looked at her now.
You didn't just save yourself that night. You saved me too.
Yetsi's expression softened. She didn't say anything at first, just took a slow sip of her own beer, then offered it to him.
You always needed more time. And that's okay. Some of us fight our demons first. Some of us make peace with them. And others, well, they pretend you're not there at all. At the end of the day, I'm glad you chose to be here.
Temo let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. He felt it now. Not as fear, but as clarity.
I'm scared of what'll happen if I start listening to that old voice again. The one that tells me to shrink, to hide, to make myself small so that I'll be safe.
He glanced down at his hands.
I know what that leads to, and I'm not going back.
Yetsi bumped her shoulders against his.
Because that voice isn't yours anymore.
They laughed, reminisced, and enjoyed the evening together. Two people exhaling after a day of tension, their voices low and warm, melting into the gentle hum of the park. The night wrapped around them like a blanket, heavy with heat, scented with the damp earth, blooming jasmines, and the faint trace of hot churros from a distant cart. Temo leaned back on the bench, head tilted towards the stars, one hand lightly grazing the back of Yetzi's. She didn't pull away. Then a sound. Shrill, splintering, a screech too loud for any bird, too rough to be human. It tore through the quiet like claws across metal. Temo's stomach twisted, his breath caught in his throat. Yetsi sat up straight beside him, her eyes wide, scanning the lake. The laughter vanished, sucked out of the air. What remained was the unnatural stillness of a place holding its breath. Nothing moved, not even the leaves. Suddenly, a wet, gurgling slosh echoed from the water's edge. They both turned. Just beneath the surface, two glowing eyes stared up at them. Cold, steady, and freakishly bright. Gone, in an instant, like a dream disintegrating at first light. Yetsi was the first to speak, her voice barely masking a quiver.
There's a zoo nearby. Sometimes animals escape. It happens. Probably just a monkey or something.
What kind of monkeys have you seen? Never mind.
Temo swallowed, wanting desperately to believe her, but when he looked into her eyes, he saw the same thing he felt in his own chest. Doubt. She reached for him, wrapping her arm across his shoulders. He leaned into it, grateful for the warmth, even if her fingers trembled slightly against his back. Yetsi stood, scanning the tree line across the lake. She could have sworn she saw something dash across the shadows.
Move slowly. Follow me, okay?
Temo nodded. He pushed himself up, eyes darting between the trees and the water. A crunch right behind them made their skin crawl. It was sharp, deliberate, and close. Something large had them in their sights. Yetzi's voice broke through the uncomfortable silence.
Move!
But before either could run, something exploded from the darkness. A wet, snapping growl that thundered from this creature, whose exit from the lake sent mud flying. Something massive and fast, there and gone in the blink of an eye. As they stood there in stunned terror, a thick limb, slick like eel skin but shaped like an ape's paw, shot out from the reeds and wrapped itself around Yetzi's leg, yanking her off her feet. She hit the ground with a scream, her hands clawing at the earth.
Yetsi!
Temo's voice cracked as he lunged toward her, panic overtaking reason. She writhed in the mud, heels dragged in the shallows. Temo began to pull at her arm, and the creature pulled back.
Don't! It's gonna rip my fucking leg off!
Temo didn't stop. He threw himself at the creature, plunging into the lake waist deep, fumbling for the dull pocket knife in his shorts. He slashed, hitting something rubbery and muscular. Only then did he see it clearly. It wasn't a paw. It was a tail. And it wasn't just some beast. The creature rose in the water like a nightmare, out of place in this world. Its head was an amalgamation of jagged evolution, snout like a wolf's, but longer, armored with rough patches of scale, and the teeth of a beast they couldn't recognize. Eyes luminous and intelligent, cheeks rigid and covered in algae-soaked fur. The ears twitched like a dog's, alert, calculating. Its limbs were just wrong. Canine in shape, but webbed at the joints, with long, amphibious fingers tipped in black claws. The tail curled and lifted, and at its end, gripping and flailing, was a horrid hand. An Ahuizotl. Not myth, not a cautionary tale told by elders, real, and here before them. Water cascaded off its back, thick with a viscous slime that reeked of decay. Its open mouth stretched far too wide, filled with rows of serrated teeth, meant to crack bone, not chew. From its throat came a gurgling scream that vibrated in Temo's ribs. Temo's hands were shaking, but he didn't let go. He wrapped an arm around Yetsi and heaved, lifting her with a strength born of pure fear. She screamed again, her leg bleeding freely, torn at the calf. Her weight sagged against him. The Ahuizotl watched, crouched low and amused, a predator with time, watching them the way a cat watches a mouse it is toying with. Temo met its gaze. It tilted its head, curious, and scrambled back into the water. It really just disappeared. Barely any ripples to indicate where it was.
I need you to trust me.
He whispered to Yetsi, dragging her backward to the muck.
You're gonna do something stupid.
She groaned through gritted teeth, her face pale and tight with pain. He didn't answer. He just looked at her and smiled. Then he turned and ran, hauling her toward the nearby dock. Swan-shaped paddle boats bobbed gently in the water, a surreal contrast to the terror chasing them below the surface. Temo felt an odd sense of dread looking into the tree line. He felt watched, and something reminded him of the creature he'd seen in his screen earlier that day. Who knows what awaited them in the shadows of the sprawling urban forest? He knew instinctually that this was the only way. They just had to get past the lake, and they'd be close to a road, close to other humans, close to safety.
Seriously?
She gasped as he helped her onto a swan-shaped paddle boat.
Oh, how romantic.
She muttered, half conscious, half hysterical.
Just stay alert and hold this.
He pressed a rusted metal bar into her hand and jumped onto the pedals, legs spinning as fast as they'd go. The swan boat creaked and groaned beneath their weight, sluggish and absurd as it pushed across the lake, blood trailing in the water behind them like a signal flare. Temo didn't stop. He paddled harder, panting, praying, teeth clenched against tears. The trees on the other side were still far. Too far. Underneath them, a bump rocked the boat. The creature that attacked them was now lunging at something else they had not seen. Ahead of them, in the reeds leading up to the rocks, they saw the creature leap out of the water and seemingly ambush another creature. A splash, a thud, then another. And soon came a howl from a creature they did not see. Temo's heart seized. Up on the far bank, illuminated in the moonlight, a trail of bloody prints climbed the rocks. This was no mere animal the Ahuizotl was hunting. The beast reached its long, claw-tipped hand towards the rocks to save itself from the Ahuizotl, and scaled up. Its silhouette was visible against the night sky, illuminated by the crescent moon behind it. Before Temo could blink, it disappeared. Then the sound came from an entirely different direction. Low, beside the reeds, in the back, near the benches they came from. They couldn't bear it. The sounds of these beasts fighting over who gets to eat them first was horrifying. And both Temo and Yetsi were now cuddled up in a gentle embrace, awaiting their doom. The clashing of bodies, the snapping of teeth, and the smashing of claws, all accompanied by the screeches and howls, was too much for anyone. Eventually, the wolf-like being's head re-emerged across from Yetsi and Temo, close to the shore.
Do you see that?
Temo nods Yetsi gently, his voice hushed, barely audible over the sloshing of the lake. Her head lolled to the side, eyelids fluttering as she fought unconsciousness. She blinked, groaned, then followed his gaze and froze. Glowing yellow eyes, ancient and patient, pierced through the darkness from the far shore. And dangling from its jaws, limp and broken, was a shape they recognized immediately. A tail, or perhaps an arm, twisted grotesquely in the creature's maw. Blood dripped from the enormous fangs, hissing as it struck the ground beneath. Yetsi opened her mouth, but Temo gently pressed a hand over hers.
Uh-huh. I see it.
The beast in the shadows held the Ahuizotl, the same one that had dragged Yetsi into the lake. The predator now became prey. It writhed violently, snarling and screeching, but the larger creature's jaws remained locked as it stood still while the Ahuizotl's blood painted the surroundings. It just wouldn't stop thrashing. The new figure was unlike anything Temo had ever seen. Wolf-like in stature, but too fluid, too vast. Its outline flickered like firelight. Feathers emerging from the fur, shadows trailing around its limbs like smoke. A god disguised as a monster. Or perhaps a monster misunderstood as divine. Whatever it wasn't attacking them. It was holding the other creature back. Temo kept paddling towards the shore now, slow and shaking as the gruesome scene unfolded before them. Then, the larger beast's head tilted, its jaws flexed, a squelch, a crunch, a final ragged shriek, and then silence. The Ahuizotl was not going to bother them anymore. Yetsi slumped over again unconscious. The air felt too thin. The thing, whatever this being was, turned toward them. Temo's breath caught in his throat. It stepped forward, weightless atop the lake as though the water bowed beneath its feet. Each movement shimmered, its fur shifting into feathers, its tail vanishing into mist, a living constellation. The edges of its black fur and feathers were iridescent, reminding him of crows. It approached the boat and Temo didn't run. Couldn't. He simply watched. Then the creature bent its head toward Yetsi's wound. Its snout brushed her torn leg. Temo flinched, but didn't intervene. He couldn't. He was in shock. A gentle pulse of warmth radiated outward, humming low in his bones like the earth itself had sighed. The bleeding stopped. The skin was sealed.
How did you do that?
The being lifted its head, golden eyes glowing brighter than before. There was no malice there, no hunger, only memory, recognition. It blinked slowly at Temo and lowered its head the way animals who trust someone may. Then a voice, not spoken aloud, but felt, heavy, low, as the creature's gaze met his. It echoed from somewhere deep inside him.
I'm here to help.
Temo stared. His heart skipped, his tongue caught against his teeth. And then spoke again, this time with unmistakable intent.
You will get the answers you seek soon, Tlaloc.
The name struck like thunder. Temo froze.
Wait. How do you...
But before he could finish, the world tilted. Temo gasped and sat bolt upright, back in the coyote's den. Temo's head was spinning.
Thank you for listening and supporting The Sixth Sun. The Sixth Sun is a project by Coyote Studio, produced by Liv Kurt. Voiced by Hans Potter, and with additional voices by Jamal Kuykendall, Ross Lee, and Abigail Roscoe. The Sixth Sun also wants to highlight Rich Aucoin, who just released Synthetic Season 4, available now as of October 30th. His music is incredible, and it's the soundtrack of many of the pivotal moments on The Sixth Sun. Please support this amazing collaborator and give his music a listen. Thank you for your support, and if you want access to early artwork, early posts, and behind-the-scenes content, please check out our Patreon where you can support our project further. Thank you so much for your support, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. While celebrating Aztec mythology, The Sixth Sun also wishes to acknowledge that we have recorded and produced these episodes on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Coast Salish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Thank you for your enthusiasm, your continued support, and for helping indie artists get our project acknowledged. It means a lot to us, and we'll see you at the next episode.